As per my principles, I don't usually play single-player story-driven games with DLCs announced until those DLCs are out, as I prefer to play the finished stories. I did this with the previous CD Projekt RED title, The Witcher 3, waiting for a year before finally playing the game myself, and that was my original plan with Cyberpunk 2077 as well. The fact that the game was so infamously broken on release only reinforced the idea. Half a year later, with no DLCs yet released because the developers are still busy trying to fix the game with no end to fixes in sight, I decided that the wait is going to be too long for my liking and played the game as it is now. Specifically, I played it on versions 1.2 and 1.21, originally intending to just run through the main story for now, but ending up doing most of what can be done in the game anyway.
Let's do this.
And I had fun with it, despite it still being a massive game. So let me quickly share what I feel is exciting, mediocre, and unfortunate about the game. While I still feel that Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't leave me with the same fuzzy feelings as classics like Deus Ex or Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, the amount of genuinely interesting stories in this game is only rivaled by The Witcher 3. Don't be misled by how simple and samey the side quests are at the starting point of the game, something that will probably be filled with the expected DLCs, as after the first major turning point of the game, the side quests start gradually growing into proper side stories. You get lots of intimate character development, much of which is influenced by your choices for the quests, and it's really good. Made even better with the genuinely great mechanics. The game never gets as deep as a proper immersive sim or a sandbox as some might wish, but the mix of stealth, action, hacking, and social interactions never gets old. The game does a lot of what I expected the Outer Worlds to be, but even better and with a lot more on top. Never excelling in any of the specific genre mechanics, but none of them being mediocre either. And of course, the setting of the game, the Night City, is stunning. The game looks amazing, especially if your PC can run it on high settings. The soundtrack, both licensed and the score, is great, and you can easily get lost in the city the same way you could in any huge modern city. This game, along with something like Red Dead Redemption 2, are showing what open worlds can be on an incredibly high level, which also showcases just how unsustainable this level might be. Cyberpunk somehow manages to keep you interested and keep itself varied, full of fun stories, but it comes at a cost. For one, I actually wish the game wasn't as huge, was more concise, because as it is, the pacing in the game is horribly uneven, especially since the player choice drives what missions they take in this giant map. Some might find it fun and fuel their escapist fantasies, but to me it felt a bit excessive. For another, the game is full of elements that exist just because the studio had to put content in and went with the safest, easiest to mass-produce options. So the gear is all color-coded like in a Diablo-type action RPG with legendary boots and epic guns. The most common types of missions, while still fun due to how good main mechanics are the really simple get in, do stuff, get out affairs with little to no story. And most importantly, the open world is still used more as means to get from point A, which is a specific location, to a point B, which is another specific location, with all the space in between just being pretty filler. It's also a real shame that quite a few of the characters don't get explored enough and some stories feel cut short. They stick out like a sore thumb when contrasted with the incredibly long quest series that some other characters get. And while a lot of the characters are voiced really well, some are not, which sadly includes Keanu Reeves' performance, which he seems to sleep-talk through most of. But what kills a lot of enjoyment with the game is, of course, the well-known amount of bugs and issues. Even in the version that I've played, you could easily softlock a quest simply by moving a few steps away from where the game expected you to go, or touching some NPC at a wrong time. Approach the scene from the wrong direction, softlock. Scan an item before you're meant to, softlock. It's one thing to expect the game to fall apart if you push its systems to the limits. It's another when you barely have to do anything out of the ordinary and everything still collapses on itself. Though even apart from actual bugs, there are issues that can potentially be fixed. Playing with the keyboard and mouse, for example, is far more frustrating than it has any rights to be just because of how key bindings were set up, and a lot of them are not rebindable. Hate using F key for interactions? Too bad, you can't switch that. Frustrated that someone thought that was a good idea to put holster weapon to a double tap on a left alt? So was I, especially since it eats inputs most of the time when you're trying to perform this. The UI is a horrible mess too, with things being incredibly difficult to manage and find even when you know what you're looking for. I still love the heck out of the game. I don't think it will be one of my absolute favorite games, even after it's finally fixed and even if it gets more interesting content. But I thought it was a great game underneath all of the constant issues and totally worth playing. Should you play it now though? I would advise against that. With the amount of things that can break at any point on PC, which is the best way to experience the game at the moment, you'll be risking to get frustrated far before you get to really like the game. So don't dismiss Cyberpunk 2077 as it is a great game, but don't play it just yet.